So one of Sarah Carlson's favorite places at Michigan Tech was right here on stage at the Rozsa Center as she played the violin in the Keweenaw Symphony Orchestra. Nowadays, she is a vascular surgeon for Boston's VA Medical Center and also spends her time in the classroom inspiring other young doctors at Boston University as an assistant professor. After leaving Tech, Dr. Carlson attended the University of Michigan for medical school, followed by a general surgery residency at Harvard's Beth Israel Deaconess Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts, followed by a fellowship in vascular surgery at Dartmouth. Dr. Carlson has served as an invited speaker at the American College of Surgeons annual meeting and is a recipient of the Ruth L. Kirstein National Research Award from the National Institute of Health for her research involving omega fatty 3 acids in neurocognitive development and liver metabolism. In Sarah's line of work, she is reminded every day that life is short. It's important to find joy in what you do, and if you're not having laughter and joy in your day-to-day life, it's time for a change. Dr. Sarah Carlson.
Thank you, Les, for that kind introduction, and it is a tremendous, that was my first trick. It is a tremendous honor to be here speaking to you today. That's like that girl who walks up the stairs in the Academy Awards and trips. Anyway, now that that's out of the way, it's a true honor for me to be here speaking to all of you today, and I have to start with a disclaimer. I'm one of those people that is not under 35. This is my driver's license. I am 37 years old, if you do the math here. And I was reminded in preparing for my remarks today, as I was going through some of my old belongings from college, that that is not the first time I've misrepresented my age here in Houghton. This is my fake ID that I used when I was your age, indicating I was 4 years older, and now I'm trying to be younger. So, yeah, I feel like it's coming full circle. So just take this journey with me and pretend I'm under 35. So I'm a vascular surgeon. This is what I look like in my day-to-day work. And I started out, I started out in Iron River, Michigan. That's where I grew up. It's about an hour and a half south of here. I always knew I wanted to be a vascular surgeon. Just kidding. This is a picture that I drew when I was 5 years old. This is true. I wanted to be a dentist and a cheerleader. I knew some other absolute truths at that age of my life. I don't like spiders, still true. I'm scared when a witch is walking into my bedroom, still true. And then there was this one. I think the assignment was like, what do you like to listen to, music or birds? And I was like, no, I like to listen to me. And you might say, oh, that's cute, that's a precocious 5-year-old, except that I would call your attention to the fact that I appear to be holding a knife. So that might have been scary, except that in my day-to-day job, I have a room full of people that have to listen to me while I have a sharp object and cut people open. So it actually was a predictor of my future career path. So medical school was a logical choice for me. And so to recap, I started out in Iron River. I came here and got a degree in chemistry at Michigan Tech. So I was here for 4 years. And then I went to the University of Michigan for medical school and a master's degree, as Les mentioned, and then took my path out east to Boston at one of the Harvard hospitals for my general surgery training, which I was there for 8 years. And then went to Dartmouth Medical Center for a vascular surgery fellowship, and then on back now down to Boston. So I'm actually, after all these years, I've been training ever since I left here. I just now finished, and now they've given me a title of assistant professor of surgery. So now I get to teach young surgeons, which is a great pleasure. So very quickly, just a little bit about what I do day to day. I'm a vascular surgeon. I operate on blood vessels. That means basically everything after the heart. So that you can see the heart in the cartoon drawing and that candy cane shaped thing, red tube that comes out of it. That's the aorta. And so the aorta feeds the body with blood, feeds the brain. All the branches from the aorta go to the brain, the arms, the intestines, the kidneys, and so forth. And this is a 3D reconstruction of a CAT scan. In the middle you can see of an aorta. Those two things that are coming off down below, those are the kidneys. And when your aorta is normal and it works well for you, you don't even know it's there. It's about the size of a garden hose, and it has the pressure in it of like a garden hose. It has high pressure because it has to feed the body with blood and have enough pressure to push it out. So sometimes when bad things happen with the aorta, it can be a huge, huge problem. So the blue arrow indicates an aortic aneurysm. An aneurysm is a dilated, weakened area of a blood vessel. That means that can happen when you're smoking or high blood pressure or just sometimes bad luck or bad genetics. And we know that when people get these dilated aneurysms, that's a risk for rupture. Well, you can imagine rupturing a blood vessel that has the pressure of a garden hose is a pretty potentially deadly event. And so when it happens, 75% of people who rupture an aneurysm at home don't survive to make it into the hospital. And of those who do survive to make it into the hospital, 50% of them don't make it out of the hospital alive. So it's a potentially serious, very serious problem. So our goal as surgeons is to fix these things before they rupture. So we'll get patients, again, this is a CAT scan, so patients will be referred to me when their primary care doctors will say, gosh, I've diagnosed an aneurysm in this patient. And so the old-fashioned way to fix an aneurysm is to cut somebody open from their sternum all the way down to their pubic region, take out all the intestines, put them to the side, clamp the aorta above and below the problem, and replace the aorta, replace the section of aorta that's faulty with a Dacron or polyester tube. And that works well, and we still do that a lot. But the issue is, you can imagine people who have aneurysms also have other medical problems. So there are oftentimes people who have high blood pressure, who have heart disease, who have lung disease, and putting them through an operation that's that big and that stressful physiologically sometimes just isn't an option. So people who can't have aneurysms fixed that way have aneurysms fixed the new way. And this is called an endovascular aortic aneurysm repair. And this is what scientists and engineers and bioprosthetists have given us as a field of surgeons. So this is thanks to smart people like you guys who are working on these types of problems. So instead of slicing somebody open up and down and taking out all their intestines, now we use small needles and we puncture the groin arteries right here. And through the needle we can thread a wire. You can see, let's see, here. We can thread a wire, a stiff wire, on both sides, and then we take a prosthetic piece that is loaded onto a catheter, so it's very skinny. It's called a stent graft, and we deploy that stent graft on the inside of the aorta. And so in doing so, the blood flows through the stent graft, and it doesn't flow through the aneurysm part, and we can protect the aneurysm itself from rupturing. So this is a good fix. We've even taken it up a notch, and some of the work that I do now is to say, gosh, when an aneurysm is too close to the arteries that feed the kidneys or too close to the arteries that feed the intestines, you can't cover that up with a tube because you don't want to block off the blood flow to the kidneys or the intestines. And so again, thanks to computer scientists and engineers who have developed some of this technology, we can now 3D model what each individual aortic anatomy looks like. The red here is the regular blood flow, the yellow section is the aneurysm sac, and then we can project what it might look like to put a stent in that covers those kidney arteries, and we can design stents that have holes that are in the exact right location within a millimeter to allow blood flow to the kidneys and to the intestines. And so we work with our engineers, we design this, we put these in, and when they're done, they look something like that. Easy peasy, it's plumbing. Who's the guy on the right? Anybody? Who's this guy? Oh, sorry, on the left. Am I right? Everybody knows who this guy is. That's Albert Einstein. He died of a ruptured aneurysm in 1955. Who's the guy on the left? That's Dr. Nissen, who operated on Albert Einstein. He was already a famous surgeon of his day, and he operated on Albert Einstein for something totally separate. He opened him up, he said, for cysts or something in 1947. And when he opened him up, he said, oh my God, Albert Einstein has an aortic aneurysm. What are we going to do about this? And so he did what he thought he could do at the time, and that was all he had available, he wrapped the aorta with cellophane, saran wrap basically, and sewed it tightly around to the sides of the aorta and hoped that giving it some external support on the outside with an inert substance would prevent the aneurysm from rupturing. So Einstein lived for 7 years with cellophane wrapping his aortic aneurysm, and when it ruptured, unfortunately, the cellophane didn't do him any good. But I bring this up because that was a genius move at the time, and that was only 50 years ago. I mean, if we think about how far this has come in 50 years, if Albert Einstein walked in and was on my operating room table with what I have available to me today, with the technology that I have now, thanks to the engineers, with the education that I have now, thanks to Michigan Tech, I would have him out of the hospital in 24 hours after his aneurysm was repaired, and he would be doing the next theory of relativity. So, food for thought. So, other old white guys. Anybody know who this guy is? No. He's a surgeon. His name's Joseph Fisher. He wrote this textbook, which you can order on Amazon. His career was winding down as my career in surgery was starting, and I want to take a couple minutes to tell you a quick story of how I met him. So when I was at the University of Michigan, a few of my classmates and I were going to go to the American College of Surgeons meeting because we wanted to hear great surgeons speak, and we all wanted to be surgeons. And Dr. Fisher was at that meeting. And the way that they do it when you go to these academic meetings, at least in surgery, each individual's school will have, or surgery training program will have receptions after hours. So Tuesday night, the Yale surgeons will have a cocktail party, and Thursday evening, Stanford will have their cocktail party. And they're all closed, they're not invited to these things. So I was a medical student at the time. I wanted to go work for this guy. So I did something a little bold. I found out when his reception was, and I walked up to the door, I put on my suit, and I said, I'd like to have a couple minutes with somebody who does admissions for the surgery program. And the secretary at the door said, it's not my call, you're not on the list, I can't let you in. And as that was happening, the vice chairman of the surgery department walked out. And I gave him my quick spiel, and he said, all right, young lady, I'm going to bring you in, I'll introduce you to Dr. Fisher. And so the doors open, and this guy was like the godfather. People were like kissing the ring, and he was around. I realized at that moment that what I had sort of bitten off. But nonetheless, I gave him my spiel, and I said, Dr. Fisher, my name is Sarah Carlson. I'm from Northern Michigan. I have a degree from Michigan Tech University, and I'm a medical student at the University of Michigan. And I promise if you hire me to be a surgery trainee under you, that you will never hire someone who will work harder. So he paused for a second, and he said, young lady, I like your gumption, I think is what some old white dude word or something like that. He liked it, is the point. And 24 hours later, I had an invitation to interview at Beth Israel Deaconess, and that's ultimately where I trained. And even years later, people would hearken back and say, I remember you. You were the girl who crashed the party at the American College of Surgeons. And it's true. I did. But I'm glad I did. And so I have 3 quick things I would like to impart if you will indulge me, and that is the first one. Number 1, to get started in your dream job, all you need is hunger. I'm saying that to this audience because you are Michigan Tech students. I wouldn't say this to your average, 18 to 22-year-olds on the street. But you guys are coming out of this institution, and you can look somebody in the eye and say, I don't have a 50 publication CV. I don't have any work experience at all. But you have hunger, and you have your Michigan Tech background, and that is worth a whole lot. And that actually is not true. Later in life, your Michigan Tech degree is still worth a ton, but 15 years down the road, you're looking for a job. You can't just say, I want to work hard. Then they're going to say, well, what have you done for 15 years? So take advantage of that time right now, because if you want to go work for Google or Ford or whoever, find out who the big wig is and get an opportunity to look them in the eye and say, I want to work hard for you. And believe it or not, that's worth a ton. And then you have to work hard. You have to back it up. My second of 3 points is something that I think is really important. We under 35-year-olds are a very casual group of people, and we speak casually. and that's fine. But when you are giving your 2-second elevator spiel to Dr. Fisher, or when you have the opportunity to address somebody in a professional setting, you better sound like a professional. And I have seen young surgeons have their careers nearly derailed because they sound stupid when the content of what they're saying is smart. So let me give you an example. I had a young woman who was an intern in surgery, and she would present patients in the morning. We would all stand around, and her job would be, with a circle of 6 doctors, she'd be the one to say, this is a 64-year-old gentleman with acute cholecystitis. He's postoperative day 1 from a gallbladder surgery. Except that instead she would say, this is Mr. Smith. He's post-op day 1 from acute cholecystitis. And that, I had to pull her aside and say, listen, what you're saying is smart, but it doesn't sound that way. And I think we have to be very careful because we do these things we don't even realize. So my strong suggestion to you is that you eliminate these types of words from your professional vocabulary. Now, you can absolutely talk with your friends however you want, but the upspeak, the blah, 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 the raise your hand and ask a question and start by saying, I'm sorry. This is especially ladies, don't do this, right? You're not sorry. I have a question, and it's a good question. If you did something that you should be sorry for, you can say you're sorry. That's okay. This is a picture of my 14 and 11-year-old stepsons. They say like more than I have ever heard any human being say like totally. And so what I do with them is we play a game, so especially when we're in the car for long car rides, and I will issue $1 for every 3 questions that any one of them can answer without using like, or upspeak. And they have to answer in complete sentences. So for example, I'll say, Desmond, he's my 14-year-old, what's your favorite thing about 9th grade? Well, my favorite thing about 9th grade is that I can have study hall with my friends. Great. Desmond, tell me about what happened at football practice yesterday. Well, like this kid, he went for a pass and then, you don't get anything. So I've done this with these kids. We go back and forth. If they can answer 3 questions, they get $1. And we have done this for 6 months. Does anybody have any guess as to how much money I've paid out so far? $1. $1. It's awesome. I say this because you could actually do this. So if I were thinking back, if I were prepping for the professional phase of my life, I might play this game with my friends. You could make it a drinking game, I'm just saying. You didn't hear that from me. My children are not allowed to play drinking games, so we have to do $1. My final point is, my last suggestion to you is that you continue to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. That is easy to start here at Michigan Tech because all of you are super smart, and the people around you are also super smart. Don't dumb yourself down. Don't hang out with people who aren't smarter than you. And when you find yourself in a professional setting and you feel like, gosh, I'm an idiot, everybody here is smarter than me, recognize that that's a great opportunity. That, just like great sports teams get better by playing teams that are better than them. When you surround yourself with smart people, you're golden. These are my roommates here at Michigan Tech. They are really smart guys, and this is the truth. I didn't tell them I was going to be including them in this, so I won't say their names, but one of them is a high up at Microsoft, and one of them is a higher up at Kraft, and they're doing great. We didn't always take things seriously. The New Yorker, a year ago, published this as their cover, which was an operating room from the vantage point of a patient surrounded by 4 women. And I think this is really important, and I just wanted to highlight that the face of surgery specifically is changing dramatically. It's not old white dudes anymore. This is my team from Dartmouth. We recreated this cover because we loved it. This is us, 4 of us women. And then women everywhere also did this because we just think it's really important to celebrate the diversity in surgery. This is a picture from my Facebook page of the Harvard Medical School. So I created this course at HMS for medical students who are interested in surgery called Surgery Boot Camp. They called it the best classmates and course leader at Harvard Med. And I think it's because I taught them that day how to put in chest tubes, and then they taught me how to do a sake bomb at lunch, which is like a Jaeger shot. Anyway, it's a whole thing. It's great. I got married a year ago. My husband couldn't be here today. He is smarter than me, which is sometimes really annoying. We played this pub spelling bee recently, and he beat the crap out of me, and man, did it piss me off. But I think it's still really important. I congratulated myself because I chose a partner wisely. I would recommend that you all do the same. Choose somebody who is smarter than you. That's always a wonderful thing, and he continues to challenge me and make me smarter every day. Those are my 3 points. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak with you, and I'm looking forward to chatting with you all later.